Everybody, in today's episode, I'm going to share with you the process I go through when I'm doing a strategic plan for the year ahead. It doesn't need to be super difficult to develop, and in fact, if it is, you're going to have a hard time following it. This is a process that I've been using for our companies and organizations since about 1999. I think you're going to find it really beneficial. Hey, welcome back to the channel. If you haven't subscribed yet, consider doing so. Give it a thumbs up and all of that jazz. Before I get started, can we talk about my Christmas shirt?
You'll shoot your eye out, kid.
Okay, I'm super excited about the t-shirt, but a little more excited about teaching you how to strategically plan. Strategic planning is a really fancy name for getting your shite together and having a clear and concise path of getting to your goals in the upcoming year. Now, I've probably done 300 to 400 strategic plans with clients and organizations over the year, and there are a couple of mistakes that they make. The first one is that they plan too far out. They'll have a 3, 5, or 10-year strategic plan. The problem with planning this far ahead is so many things can happen in just the next 12 months. If they go haywire, your whole rest of your plan goes off path. My recommendation is to plan in 12-month increments. You can have a 3, 5, 10-year goal, but the plan of what you're going to actually activate just happens within a 12-month window. Now, this process, I'm going to jump through pretty quickly, but I'm going to put kind of information up here as we go, is a 9-step process. And you might think, geez, 9 steps seems like a lot. It is, but what I can tell you is your first plan is the hardest plan. After you get that first one under your belt, it's going to be something that you're going to want to do on a regular basis. I find that I have to convince clients to do their first plan and then convince them after the first plan not to keep on trying to change the plan or do additional plans. Once you have a plan in place that's working, leave it alone. Now let's jump into step 1, which is current situation. In this step, what you do is you write down where you are right now. It's almost like taking a snapshot. Here is exactly where I am as a professional, or my business is as a business model. And I should add that it's a good idea to write this down in a book, right? It doesn't have to be fancy. I use a book like this that I actually keep all of my notes in, but I also do my planning in as well. I don't know if you can see that on camera. But anyway, all of my ideas and notes and so on get put in this book so that I won't lose them, right? This is, as an example, some video ideas that I have to work on over Christmas. But you want to write it down somewhere where it's both easy to write down. I don't actually recommend doing a strategic plan in a computer. Write it down manually, maybe even in pencil, so that you can erase and change things. And then you could transcribe it into a computer later. But you want to have it somewhere that you can refer to on a regular basis. The second step is to set the goal or goals you have for the next 12 months. Underneath that first section, you would write down, I want to accomplish this much in revenue, or this many new clients, or maybe new service or product offerings. What you want the current situation to look like 12 months from now. Some people might want to add staff, have more time off themselves. All of those things are fine, but I would really encourage you to make sure that your goals are measurable. You know, my old adage is if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. So make sure that you're setting goals that are measurable, not I'm more happy, more like I work 3 days a week, or I have 4 days a week off, or something like that. Or I make $1 million a year in revenue. Third step is the gap analysis. Now that's a really fancy word for how big is the distance between where we are and where we want to be. That's the gap that we're looking at. So if you're making $500,000 a year now and you want to make $1 million a year, that's a $500,000 gap, or about a $41,000 a month increase in revenue to get to where you want to be. I'll actually put a link to a video that I did up here where I talk about how to set measurable goals, which might be a good video for you to go and have a look at before you do your goal setting and your gap analysis. After you determine the gap between where you are and where you want to be, the next step is to start to develop strategies that you can use to push yourself from where you are to where you want to go. I normally recommend that you don't choose any more than 3 strategies for each goal. 4, 5, 6 strategies become a bit too much to implement, and 1 or 2 strategies may not hedge your bets enough so that if one of the strategies doesn't work, you still have a chance of making your goal. After you've determined your strategy, then you set actionables. What steps do I need to put in place in order for that strategy to happen? You might decide that you want to do a quarterly newsletter to prospects. The actionables that you might have in doing that is choose a platform in order to send the newsletters out, have a current mailing list that you can send out to, develop an editorial calendar on what you're going to cover, write the content that you're going to put out, and then check analytics to see if anyone's reading it. Those would all be actionables that you would put in place in order to ensure that that strategy gets executed properly. The 6th step, after you have, of course, your strategies and actions, is timetable. When are each of those actions going to happen? So using the newsletter example again, by what date will we have a newsletter platform decided? By what date will we have a clean mailing list put together? By what date will we have an editorial calendar approved? This is where the rubber meets the road, and that you are making commitments on when these actionables are going to happen in order for the strategies to be deployed, which can push you towards your goal. You can start to see how all of these pieces go together. And this tends to be where people start to kind of repel from a plan, is because it brings accountability into it. It's another thing to say, I need to choose a newsletter platform by the end of December. As soon as we put the measurable in place, it now creates a commitment situation. After we've developed our timetable on when everything has to happen, the next step is assignment. An assignment, again, is a fancy word for who is going to do it. Now, for a small business, it might be all you, but in businesses that have 2 or more people, what you would do is you would assign who's going to do which action by what date. And this is where something like a Gantt chart, if you're familiar with that, would come into place, is we would look to see how each strategy is related to the actions that are required to execute it. You don't have to do that in this situation, but for those of you that are kind of project management geeks, a Gantt chart is where this starts to come into effect. The 8th step is waypoints/milestones. These are periodic check-ins where we look to make sure that we're on course. I like to do quarterly milestones so that I know what has to get accomplished in each quarter of the year. January, February, March, 1 quarter would have certain things that have to happen. April, May, June would have a second set of things that have to happen. July, August, September would have a 3rd set that have to happen. October, November, December would have a 4th set. With those, I would have actionables, I would have where I am to goal, and I would have periodic check-ins on my strategies to make sure that I'm pointing in the right direction and that I'm on the right pace. And the 9th and final step, assuming that you've done all of those other steps, is to measure and manage. And that goes back to knowing what our milestone goals are, right? How we've broken down where we need to be. And that is a regular check-in, could be weekly depending on the sensitivity of your goals. I would probably suggest monthly, where you measure and manage. We're checking to see how we are to goal, and we're also making any adjustments or tweaks that we need to. Now, for me, at the beginning of this year, which is 2020, my goal was to launch that book. And so I had the 4 quarters set up. But March 13th, when I was sent home from the US due to COVID, I had to immediately go back to plan and make massive tweaks, knowing that I might not be able to go back on tour for 2 or 3 months. Well, as you can imagine, as things got extended, my plan continued to have to shift. And that all happened within my measure and manage phase. I had to continue to make tweaks in order to still get to goal, given new dynamics that were somewhat outside of my control. There you have it. It should be a couple of pages, no more. We're not writing a business plan. This is mostly for you unless you have partners or stakeholders that you want to include. I would say the average strategic plan should be 2 or 3 pages. And again, write it out manually and then put it in the computer if you want. But I really like to have it in hand so that I can mark it up, draw lines through it, change things, go back to it, sometimes rewrite it as I did in March, when things fundamentally shift and you have to make major adjustments. I can't speak highly enough about the importance of having a strategic plan. A super majority of businesses don't have any plan, and they just look to see where the wind takes them. I remember reading a stat that said 10% of North American businesses plan on an annual basis. Of that 10%, only 10% write it down. The success rate of that 1%, 1 in 100 that plan and write it down, was 98.3%. A big chunk of success is you coming up with the plan of what you're going to do, following the plan, and making adjustments as required in order to get to goal. As always, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the content, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing. And remember, Gladiators eat first, and they are always working a plan. I'll see you in the next video.